Hello, I'm Doug and this is the Taste and Sensibility channel, and today on Fresh Cheese number 2 we're looking at mozzarella. So as I said last time, I got into cheese recently because of a cheese and whiskey tasting at a local wine and liquor store. The whiskey flight had been put together by the spirits guy at the liquor store, and the cheese flight had been put together, the pairing for each whiskey, been put together by Liz Thorpe, a local to me, and national cheese expert. So I will link to a few of her videos down below. But I want to thumb through the book that she was peddling at this thing. And after the tasting, I ran up and bought her book. Let's see. Maybe she signed it. But after I thumbed through it and read it, I knew I could organize cheese in my mind easily all by myself. So after a brief introduction about tasting cheese, she introduces her gateway model, where mozzarella is the gateway to a whole lot of other cheeses. And that means fresh, unaged, rindless, high moisture usually, things that just taste like milk. And if it ages more than that, then it gets kicked into another section. So this all made sense to me after I saw the book. So here's our mozzarella spectrum of flavors. It goes from the least flavorful or most accessible or most approachable out to the most extreme flavors. Here it includes smoked mozzarella and feta. And then it's available every grocery store on up to specialty shops for the band up here. So like some cheeses may only be available from one creamery in the US or one location abroad. But she has a flavor wheel for each of her 9 gateway cheeses. So the mozzarella has certain characteristics, it's got certain kinds of flavors, so she has a different flavor wheel for each one. So these are all very milk and cream centered. Maybe a little grassy, or vegetal notes if it, depending on the animal it comes from. And then she just goes into the different kinds. So mozzarella is her main one for this, so that's what she calls gateway. Gateway is trademarked in her world, so I'm just going to call this whole section fresh cheese for the first session. So that's all we're focusing on in this series, is fresh cheeses, known as her mozzarella gateway. So I'm expecting 20 or 25 videos on fresh cheeses, and you may have heard of some of these as we thumb through the book here, and you may not have, but I'm going to do all the ones that I can find locally, and maybe non-locally, so we'll see what turns up. So before we get into the tasting here, I just want to remind you to like the video, give that thumbs up, leave comments and questions, subscribe to the channel, and click on that bell to get notified every time a new video pops up on Mondays and Thursdays. So I have already unwrapped one package of mozzarella, fresh mozzarella. This is not, by the way, the blocks or shredded pizza cheese that you dump on pizza or sit and eat the whole bag watching TV. But this is a very high moisture, very perishable type product. So once it comes out of the bag and gets exposed to some air and spores and bacteria, it's not going to last long. It can pick up mold and colors and off tastes in a few days. So pay attention to those expiration dates, and if you see any specks or color or smells, just toss it. It's gone. And Liz is good about addressing spoilage characteristics in her book and her videos. I'll link to her mozzarella gateway video that she's done recently, probably to push the book or to educate people based on the book style. And I'll do another one. She did an Epicurious video that's very entertaining, where she picks the most expensive of 2 different cheeses she's presented with. And that's good, so you can get a look at her style there. I will just show this. Mozzarella is pre-sliced, this one is smoked, and this one's still in the package. And then I have a little tub. I will fish out one of these little balls from this tub of brine later on. But I just want to show this is very limp, wet. It's getting me wet. It's got a few fibers in it, but not a whole lot, but it's very soft and wet. And I think this is Galbani brand over here. And then the smoked one is a Gioioso. Italian. So it's very mild. It's very wet, cheesy, creamy. I think it's lightly salted. And the salt perks up the dairy a little bit, makes it a little more interesting. But the texture is just soft. Oh, there's a few fibers you can see in it. You can see how it would make good string cheese. Although the high moisture one's not what you would want to use. So, mild and delicate. If it melted onto a pizza, it would just be a big blob of wet cheese. It's not quite like the mozzarella that goes on most American pizzas. Although if you have a good pizza place that does the Italian style, this is what they would be throwing on there. So I like that mozzarella, it's good. And now I'm going to move on to cut off a little piece of the smoked one. This is basically the same cheese held in some sort of shelf or net or mesh, or I don't know how they do it, but I think they just subject it to the same smoking that they might do for bacon or meats. Probably hickory and hardwoods. And I'm cutting a few pieces here that are more bite-sized or manageable, and I can smell the smoke from here. It's definitely that hardwood and hickory type smoke. So the skin, the outer skin turns a little brown. Yeah, smoky, smokehouse type thing. Stronger flavor. I think the smoke goes in fairly deep. It's not just on the surface. And it probably doesn't take very long, hour or two or less, to get that smoky flavor into the cheese. So that's available in lots of places. Same grocery stores that have several fresh mozzarellas would probably have a smoked mozzarella. And although Liz Thorpe puts it on the extreme end of the flavor scale for the mozzarella types, it is not offensive or too strong for most people. So that is good and tasty. And I was going to unwrap another package of mozzarella, but I don't think that's necessary. This one is Belgioioso. Too many I's and O's in this thing. Anyway, it's just an unsliced package. And how it's packaged is these are 8 ounces. They're $4 or $5. And this is one of the ways that it comes. The other way I was about to show you is in this little tub of brine. So this is Whole Foods brand. And it's interesting how the sizes of fresh mozzarella have different names and Italian names that you can't pronounce. So Bocconcini, I think is the name of this size. So I've bought several of this size ball. So it's a tub of brine, as you can see, with fresh mozzarella balls floating around. So they're pulled or balled up by some machine or people's hands when they're doing it by hand. And it sits in brine, so it's harder for it to get exposed to bacteria and spores. It stays better, keeps for a while. So that's the other way of buying mozzarella. So you can see that you just slice this and there's some fibers like the lower moisture mozzarella has. So these have been pulled into a certain direction when they make the balls and it just lines up the fibers of the protein and fat. So I will go ahead and put this on a little bit of bread or a cracker. So I got a little piece of toast here, and this is a good sized piece of mozzarella to put on there. The mild flavor and softness of the cheese has a really good contrast to the crispiness of the toast and the more cooked bread flavors, cooked grain. This is a buttery cracker that the mozzarella's on. And the same thing, contrast in texture. And the cracker might be a little more salty than the cheese. And that shows up pretty well. Makes a good pairing. So mozzarella is very often an ingredient cheese, but it's also one of those things you can put out as hors d'oeuvres and serve it that way. Just gonna do a little piece of flatbread. Don't know how this is gonna be all that different from the other things I've been putting it on, but just to try it out and be surprised by something maybe. So that cracker is still a contrast. The cracker is less salty than the cheese. And it contrasts that way, and then the crunch was really good. So fresh mozzarella is really a treat. It's really pretty good. I'm sure the different kinds and different brands have varying amounts of salt. And you can probably find something that really appeals to you. So check out fresh mozzarella's. Check out Liz's gateway video of the mozzarella gateway. And I'll put the links down below in the description. And I failed to mention early on that this cheese is from the milk of cows. So again, a reminder to like, subscribe, click on the bell, leave comments, ask questions, and check back next time for another cheese. That's all for now.